It's good to have you join me on Global News and Zuma Nigeria. Let's begin with pro-China party set for landslide win in Maldives poll. Colombia faces crisis as rabbi urges Jewish students home. Biden denounces blatant anti-Semitism at Colombia protests. China sees foreign threats everywhere as spy agency rises, and U.S. to sanction Israeli unit over abuses, according to reports. Talking election matters, the party of Maldives President Mohamed Mizu's party looks ready to have won Sunday's poll in a landslide in an outcome expected to hasten the country's shift away from traditional ally India in favor of China. According to preliminary results announced early on Monday in yesterday's vote, Mizu's People's National Congress PNC won 70 out of 93 seats and, along with 3 seats secured by its allies, has taken absolute control of parliament. If confirmed, the win will translate into a supermajority, 3/4 of all the seats in parliament. Official results are anticipated later on Monday. The major opposition Maldivian Democratic Party MDP, led by ex-president Ibrahim Mohamed Soli, who is seen as pro-India, held 65 seats in the former parliament but won only 15 seats, according to reports. Only 3 women candidates from the 41 who stood as candidates were elected, Miharu reported, adding that the winners were all members of Mizu's PNC. An official confirmation of the results is anticipated to take a week, and the new assembly will take office from early May. The vote was seen as a critical test for Mizu's plan to press ahead with closer economic cooperation with China after winning presidential elections last September. The PNC and its allies had only 8 seats in the outgoing parliament, which made it hard for Mizu to push ahead with his policies after winning the presidential poll. Opposition MDP, which had previously had a supermajority of its own, already looked set for an embarrassing defeat with just a dozen seats even before the preliminary results were announced. The Maldives is a low-lying nation of some 1,192 tiny coral islands scattered some 800 kilometers, 500 miles across the equator, is one of the countries most vulnerable to sea level rises caused by the climate crunch. Mizu, a 45-year-old ex-construction minister, has vowed that land reclamation and building islands higher will tackle the challenge, but environmentalists argue such a step could exacerbate flooding risks. He also pledged to end the country's India First policy, putting ties with New Delhi on the strain. His government has asked dozens of Indian military personnel who operate reconnaissance aircraft given by India to patrol the country's borders to leave, a measure critics say could accelerate the Maldives' pivot towards China. As campaigning for the parliamentary elections was in full swing this month, Mizu awarded high-profile infrastructure contracts to Chinese state-owned companies. Opposition parties who have criticized Mizu's government on areas including foreign policy and the economy sought to hold his government accountable. The PNC managed to grab major seats in previous MDP strongholds, including in the capital Mali, Adu City and Kuhudufushi City in the north. The Democrats, founded by ex-President Mohamed Nasheed after splitting with the MDP in 2023, lost all seats the party contested, while the new party of former President Abdullah Yamin, whose corruption convictions was overturned just days ago, also lost all the seats in contested, according to provisional results and media projections. According to the Elections Commission, turnout was 72.9%, lower than the 82% recorded during the last election in 2019. Now, Columbia University is facing a full-blown catastrophe heading into Passover as rabbi connected to the Ivy League school urged Jewish students to stay home, and tense confrontations on campus talked condemnation from the White House and New York officials. The atmosphere is so charged that Columbia officials announced students can attend classes and even possibly take exams virtually beginning Monday, the first day of Passover, a major Jewish holiday set to start in the evening. Tensions at Columbia and several universities have been higher than ever since the October 7th terror attack on Israel by Hamas. However, the situation at Columbia intensified in recent days after university officials testified before Congress last week about anti-Semitism on campus and pro-Palestinian protests on and near campus increased. The newest crisis has unlocked Colombian President Manaochi Shafiq up to fresh attacks from her critics, with Republican U.S. Representative Elise Stefanik demanding she step down instantly because school leadership has clearly lost control of its campus. Rep. Virginia Foxx, the Republican chair of the House Education Committee, sent a letter on Sunday to university leaders cautioning them of consequences if they do not rein in protest on campus. Rabbi Eli Bushler, a rabbi associated with Columbia University's Orthodox Union Jewish Learning Initiative on campus, highlighted fears about student safety. In his message, Bushler wrote that recent events at the university have made it clear that Columbia University's public safety and the NYPD cannot guarantee Jewish students' safety. And still on anti-Semitism, Joe Biden, United States President, has condemned pro-Palestinian activists for acts of blatant anti-Semitism during protests at Columbia University. Biden said it was essential to speak out against the alarming rise of the anti-Semitism in our schools, communities, and online in a statement to commemorate the Jewish holiday of Passover on Sunday. Silence is complicity. Even in recent days, we've seen harassment and calls for violence against Jews. Biden said. His comments came after reports emerged over the weekend of harassment and threats against Jewish students on the campus of Columbia University in New York. Footage shared on social media appeared to show activists telling students to go back to Poland and that October 7th is going to be every day for you, referring to Hamas's attacks on Israel, in which 1,139 people were killed. Shabbat at Columbia University, a chapter of an international Orthodox Jewish movement, said in a statement that protesters had also told Jewish students, "You have no culture, all you do is colonize and to go back to Europe." A group of student activists representing the protesters distanced themselves from inflammatory individuals and said they reject any form of hate or bigotry in a statement on Sunday. Biden made his remarks hours after a statement by the White House calling out physical intimidation aiming Jewish students and the Jewish community. White House Deputy Press Secretary Andrew Bates said, while every American has the right to peaceful protest, calls for violence and physical intimidation targeting Jewish students and the Jewish community are blatantly anti-Semitic, unconscionable, and dangerous. They have absolutely no place on any college campus or anywhere in the United States of America. And echoing the rhetoric of terrorist organizations, especially in the wake of the worst massacre committed against the Jewish people since the Holocaust, is despicable. New York City Mayor Eric Adams and New York State Governor Kathy Hochul have also condemned reports of harassment and intimidation at the protest. Columbia, one of the most prestigious universities in the U.S., has emerged as a hotbed of student activism since the beginning of Israel's war in Gaza following the October 7th attacks. The New York Police Department on Thursday detained over 100 pro-Palestinian protesters after its officers swarmed the campus and cleared an encampment set up by the students. Some students involved in the protest said they had been suspended from Columbia and its associate institution, Barnard College, including Isra Harsi, the daughter of Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Away from that story now to China's top spy agency has a strong message for Chinese people. Foreign spies are everywhere in a sleek video marking the National Security Education Day. Eventually, Chinese police catch the spy in a dramatic ambush after state security authorities received multiple tips-offs from the public. The 3-minute video is the latest propaganda push by China's powerful civilian spy agency, the Ministry of the State Security (MSS), to mentally arm the Chinese public against what it sees as the rising threat of foreign espionage. Under Xi Jinping, China's most authoritarian leader in decades, the country's extremely secretive spy agency has drastically raised its public profile and widened its remit. From a shadowy organization without any discernible public face, the MSS has been transformed into a highly visible presence in public life. In Chinese cities, posters and slogans promoting national security are now a common sight on sidewalks, subway trains, campuses, and billboards. On social media, the ministry commands a massive following with near daily Commentaries showed videos or even comic strips sounding the alarm about supposedly ambiguous threat to the country. Foreign spies are omnipresent and infiltrating everything, according to MSS, from mapping apps to weather stations. The ministry also has posted details of what it claims are espionage activities carried out by American and British spy agencies and detailed how Chinese nationals studying or working abroad have allegedly been recruited by the CIA. As part of a documentary to mark National Security Education Day last week, the MSS revealed that a Chinese scientist convicted of selling state secrets to a foreign intelligence agency was executed in 2016. The documentary did not explicitly mention which country, but its images show an American flag and the U.S. Capitol building. The MSS transformation is part of Xi's sweeping pivot to add up national security in the face of intensified geopolitical tensions and increasing domestic challenges. As U.S.-China ties fray, the MSS has undertaken significant efforts to provide guidance to all the government agencies and broader society, said Zhi Guo, a professor of political science at Guilford College in the U.S. The emphasis on external threats also helps Beijing deflect criticism at home over its own policies by shifting blame onto foreign forces, a playbook by the Chinese government has repeatedly applied during periods of public discontent, most recently over protests in late 2022 against Xi's hardline measures to prevent COVID. And the spy agency's extending reach is a sign of the increasing scrutinization of Chinese life and society under Xi Jinping, where an incredibly wide array of issues can be viewed as threats to national security, said Sheena Chestnut Grittens, director of the Asia Policy Program at the University of Texas at Austin. On Israel-Gaza war, Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli Prime Minister, has said he will fight against any sanctions being enforced on Israeli military units for alleged rights violations after a report from United States Washington was planning such a step. On Saturday, the report said that Washington was planning to impose sanctions on Israel Netzah Yehuda Battalion, which has operated in the occupied West Bank, though the Israeli military said it was not aware of any such measures. Israeli media also identified the unit likely to be targeted as Netzah Yehuda, an infantry battalion founded roughly a quarter of a century ago to incorporate ultra-Orthodox Jewish men into the military. The U.S. on Friday announced a new series of sanctions linked to Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank, in the newest sign of rising U.S. frustration with the policies of Netanyahu, whose coalition government relies on settler parties. In a statement on Sunday, Israeli War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz said that he spoke with the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and asked him to reconsider the matter. Gantz said any such actions will be a mistake because they will harm Israel's legitimacy during a time of war. On Friday, Blinken said that he made determinations regarding accusations that Israel violated a set of U.S. laws that prohibit providing military assistance to individuals or security force units that commit gross violations of human rights. Blinken, without providing details, said his department was conducting investigations under a law that prohibits sending military aid to foreign security units that violate human rights with impunity. On more stories on climate crisis, Europe faced record extreme heat stress days in 2023. Climate monitors have cautioned that Europe is progressively facing stretches of heat so extreme that the human body cannot cope. In 2023, the continent endured a record number of extreme heat stress days. The European Union's Copernicus Climate Monitoring Service and the World Meteorological Organization, WMO, said on Monday. In writing its latest report, Copernicus and the WMO noted last year's severe conditions, including a July heatwave that pushed 41% of southern Europe into stroke heat stress, the biggest area of Europe under such conditions any day on record. The continent also suffered catastrophic flooding, stark droughts, violent storms, and its largest ever forest fires. Rebecca Emerton, a climate scientist at Copernicus, said we're seeing an increasing trend in the number of days with heat stress across Europe, and 2023 was no exception, with Europe seeing a record number of days with extreme heat stress. For its newest study, Copernicus and WMO used the Universal Thermal Climate Index, which measures the effect of the environment on the human body. It takes into account not just high temperatures but also humidity, wind speed, sunshine, and heat emitted by the surroundings. The index has 10 different categories of heat and cold stress, with units of degrees Celsius represented. It feels like temperature. Parts of Spain, France, Italy, and Greece experienced as many as 10 days of severe heat stress in 2023, defined as feels like temperature of more than 46 degrees Celsius, 115 degrees Fahrenheit, at which point immediate action must be taken to avoid conditions such as heat stroke. Extreme heat poses particular risks to people who work outdoors, the elderly, and those with health conditions such as cardiovascular diseases and diabetes. Parts of Italy recorded 7% more deaths than normal last July. We see that there is excess mortality when we see such extreme heat waves, like was the case in 2023, said Alvaro Silva, a climatologist from WMO. This increase in mortality is affecting the big majority of European regions. This is a big concern. Red Cross workers checking on a homeless man during a heat wave in Italy. The man sitting on the street against the wall. He has taken his shoes off and he's barefoot. Red Cross workers check on the welfare of a homeless man during that heat wave. Heat-related deaths in Europe have soared by about 30% in the past 20 years, according to a report. For the world as a whole, last month was the warmest March ever, marking the 10th straight month of historic heat as greenhouse gas emissions, mostly from fossil fuels, continue to push temperatures even more higher. In African shores, almost 15 million Sudanese need urgent health aid. The continuing war in Sudan has crippled the country's health system. Even for those who are lucky to receive medical consultation, the lack of medicines has been an issue. Alam Abdel Rasool, the Minister of Health of the Red Sea state where Port Sudan is located, says around 80% of the country's medical institutions have stopped services. We're facing a sharp increase in demand for medical services, and we're facing a huge challenge in terms of our drug reserves and technical capabilities, he said. Antibiotics, painkillers, oxygen, and blood in particular have been depleted in most hospitals. According to the World Health Organization, about 15 million Sudanese have been left in need of urgent health assistance. According to the newest report by the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, so far, 14,719 fatalities have been recorded in Sudan, while the number of people displaced has reached 8.2 million. On Israel-Gaza conflict, Egypt-Turkey FM's call for Mid-East de-escalation. On Saturday, Egypt's foreign minister was hosted by his Turkish counterpart. Someh Shokri's visit to Istanbul was part of the preparations for Egypt's president's upcoming visit to Turkey. The war in Gaza and the escalation between Israel and Iran were two issues also high on the agenda. Shokri said, and I quote, "We have warned since the beginning that war in Gaza will lead to the expansion of conflict and tension in the region. We have seen that in the targeting of the maritime navigation in the Red Sea and its effect on the international economy, and now with this tension and military escalation between Iran and Israel, and we called upon both sides to show restraint and not to slip towards a wider frame of military confrontation, whether direct or indirect. This doesn't serve the interests of the Palestinian people nor stability in the region." The comments came on the same day Iraq said it was probing a deadly blast on one of its military bases hosting an Iran-aligned group. The group, known as Popular Mobilization Forces, are part of the Iraq Armed Forces. Malaysia officials initially described the explosion at the Kalsu military base north of Babylon as an airstrike, blaming it on U.S. forces. In a statement, the U.S. Central Command denied it had carried out any airstrikes in Iraq. Suspicions were also directed at Israel, which had hinted to further de-escalation. Turkey's top diplomat Hakan Fidan warned against disregarding the roots of the Israel-Palestinian conflict. The visit of Sami Shokri to Turkey days after the political leader of Hamas met with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and after Qatar said it was reassessing its role as a mediator in the war in Gaza. Now I'll take a quick break, and when I come back, I'll bring you more stories, particularly from Nigeria. Don't go anywhere. You're welcome back. Now, stories from Nigeria. We begin with FG to launch 2,700 CNG buses, tricycles. The presidency has said it is set to launch around 2,700 compressed natural gas CNG powered buses and tricycles before May 29th, when President Bola Tinubu turns 1 year in office. It said the federal government was getting ready to deliver 100 conversion workshops and 60 refueling sites spread across 18 states before the end of 2024. Bayo Onanuga, the special advisor to the president on information and strategy, disclosed this in a statement he signed on Sunday titled Presidential CNG Initiative Set for Rollout. It added that in all, over 600 buses are intended for production in the first phase, which will be accomplished in 2024. In October 2023, almost 5 months after the removal of petrol subsidy, Tinubu launched the Presidential CNG Initiative to deliver cheaper, safer, and more climate-friendly energy. The CNG initiative was designed to deliver compressed natural gas, especially for mass transit. The federal government earmarked 100 billion naira, part of the 500 billion naira palliative budget, to purchase 5,500 CNG vehicles, buses and tricycles, 100 electric buses, and over 20,000 CNG conversion kits, with plans to develop CNG refilling stations and electric charging stations nationwide. The FG had said the initiative will ease the burden of the surge pump price on the masses. Part of Sunday's announcement was the establishment of a fresh plant on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway that will assemble the tricycles with Brilliant EV will assemble electric vehicles when it receives the semi-knocked down component. Onanuga said the deployment of CNG buses and tricycles under the vision to get at least 1 million natural gas propelled vehicles on Nigerian roads by 2027 will mark a major energy transition in our country's transportation industry. With compulsory tax and duty waivers approved by Tinubu in December 2023, the PCNGI committee is partnering with the private sector to deliver the promise on the initiative, he explained further. Consequently, the private sector has so far responded with over $50 million in actual investment in refueling stations, conversion centers, and mother stations. Also, a safety policy document on 80 standards and regulations that must be strictly adhered by the operators has been deployed and approved to ensure CNG conversions are done safely and reliably. Finally, on the news on politics, Ayeda Tiwa clinches victory in Ondo APC primary. Honorable Lucky Ayeda Tiwa, Ondo State Governor, may be declared winner on the governorship primary election held across the state on Saturday, barring any sudden change. Ayeda Tiwa had slugged the election out with 15 other aspirants, including Chief Olu Shola Oke, Senator Jimo Ibrahim, Honorable Wale Akinterinwa, Honorable Jimmy Odimayo, Honorable Benga Edima, and Dr. Wahab Adekojo, amongst others. The primary poll conducted through direct system was held in all the 18 local government areas of the state, with officials of the party led by Kogi State Governor Ododo overseeing over the exercise. No less than 171,922 members of the party spread across the 203 wards of the 18 local government areas of the state participated in the exercise. The election, which began at 9 a.m., was ongoing in some parts of the state at present time. The results released so far, however, were said to have been favorable to Governor Ayeda Tiwa, a sign that he may likely be declared winner of the election. But the Olushola Oke campaign organization has described the primary election as a farce, claiming that the exercise was not free and fair, and thereby called for the outright cancellation of the poll. The director of media of the campaign organization, Ojo Oyewamide, in a statement alleged that the primary election was characterized by manipulation and irregularities. But Governor Aiyedatiwa rated the election as a credible one, emphasizing that the poll went well in his own polling unit and information he received from across the state showed that the election was credible. A recap of major stories says pro-China party set for landslide win in Maldives poll. Colombia faces crisis as rabbi urges Jewish students home. Biden denounces blatant anti-Semitism at Colombia protests. China sees foreign threats everywhere as spy agency rises, and U.S. to sanction Israeli units over abuses, according to reports. And that's all on the news. Have a blessed day and a great week ahead.